Hi, scholars, and welcome to the review for Unit 8 test. This is the practice test. You are going to be taking the real test right after you watch this video. So let's begin. Number 1 says, using the graph, determine the coordinates of the zeros of the parabola. Zeros are the x-intercept where it crosses the x-axis. So that would be here and here. So those 2 points would be -2, 0, and oh, not -2, +2. Whoops. +2. We just always have negatives, it seems like. So this would be +2, 0, and +6, 0. So those are the zeros of that function. So for number 2, to determine the equation of the axis of symmetry. So first you can find the vertex, and then you just draw a dotted line through it. So vertex is right here, so dotted line. And your axis of symmetry is always going to be an equation starting with x equals. So this one's going to be x equals -7. So for number 3, we're going to put these, not really in order, we're just going to match them up. So they're all negative, of course. So again, the smaller the absolute value, the wider it is. The bigger the absolute value, the more narrow it is. So let's start with the wide. So that would be -0.25 because it's wider. And then let's go to the narrow. That would be -4. That's the more narrow, so it has to be the bigger absolute value. And then that leaves just -1 in the middle here. All right, so let's go on to number 4. So this is another one where it's looking a little weird, right? There's no b here because it says y equals -x² + 2. We're trying to find the axis of symmetry. So with axis of symmetry, or with vertex, or with maximum or minimum, we have to use that -b over 2a. If there's no b here, right, this is basically y equals -x² plus 0x because nothing is there. That's why b is 0, okay? And if b is 0, -b over 2a, doesn't matter what a is, anything divided by 0 is going to still give you 0. So we're going to just write x is equal to 0. There's no plugging in or a formula. You just have to know that it's going to be 0. It's going to be basically on, it's going to be in the middle of the coordinate plane there. X is going to be 0. It's going to be on the y-axis. So for number 5, I think it's another one that's looking kind of weird. So with this one, and I'm actually kind of glad this just happened to have these because these weren't in our notes. But this is, again, what you're going to do if you have a question like this. If there's no x, right, that means b is 0, so x is going to be equal to 0 for the axis of symmetry. If it's asking you to find the coordinates of the vertex, it's not just going to be 0, 0. We have to just know that since b is 0, right, we are going to, so let's still divide up into x and y, right? And we know that x is equal to 0, right? Just like the last one. But now we have to still plug that in. So y equals 5x² plus 15. When we put 0 in for x here, right, 0 squared plus 15, we're going to still get a number for y. So 0 squared is just 0. And then 0 times 5 is just 0. So we get 0 plus 15. And then 0 plus 15 is just 15. So the coordinates of the vertex are 0, 15. Okay, again, notice that you have to still find x and y if you're trying to find vertex. The answer is not going to just be 0, 0, okay? All right, let's go down to number 6. This one looks like the ones we've been doing. So we're going to go ahead and split up into x and y. And we can go ahead and let's think about it. Is it going to be a maximum or minimum? Because this number in front of the x², which is our a, because a is positive, right? It's going to look like this. Therefore, our answer is going to be a minimum, which is down here. So we're going to write that our answer is a minimum. Okay, so now let's find x. So x is equal to negative b over 2a. So negative 18 is just positive 18. And then 2 times 3 is 6. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So x is 3. And then I'm going to put that into y equals 3x squared minus 18x plus 29. I'm going to put 3 into the x's over here. So 3 squared minus 18 times 3 plus 29. 3 squared, so notice right here I'm going to do 3 squared first. It doesn't, well, yes, it does matter, but just make sure, especially with negatives too, that's when it really affects it. But 3 squared is 9, and then 9 times 3, okay, which gives us 27. And then 18 times 3 is negative 54. So negative 18 times 3 is negative 54 plus 29. We just put all this into our calculator. So 27 minus 54 plus 29 gives us positive 2. So this time we don't actually need to have 3 comma 2, right? We just have to have that it's a minimum and just our y value is 2. For minimum maximum, it's just the y value. All right, so going up to number 7 and 8, both of these we're solving by factoring, meaning we're finding the x-intercepts, the zeros, and we need to have it equal to 0. So to get this equal to 0, I have to move this negative 6x by adding 6x to both sides. And I'm lining up x with x. That gives me x squared. Negative 23 plus 6 gives me negative 17 plus 70 equals 0. Okay, so I have to think about what multiplies to positive 70 and adds to negative 17. Because this is a positive and this is a negative, right? Think of my integer rule. A negative plus a negative gives me a bigger negative. A negative times a negative gives me a positive. So these must be 2 negatives. And those 2 numbers are going to be 7 and 10. So I'm going to put x minus 7, x minus 10 equals 0. See how negative 7 times negative 10 gives me positive 70. And negative 7 plus negative 10 gives me negative 17. Now I split this up into 2 equations. And so x must be positive 7. And x must be positive 10. So this is my answer, both of those. All right, going on to number 8. Same thing, I need to make this equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract 3x. That gives me x squared plus 5x minus 14. This cancels out, give me 0. Now, since this is a negative, it can subtract to 5. My 2 numbers can multiply to 14 and subtract to 5. Because this is negative, I'm going to have 1 positive, 1 negative. So it's going to be 7 and 2. Now, how do I know which one is... Here, let's write it over here. So 7 and 2, right? I know one of these has to be negative because it gives me negative 14. But to add to positive 5, my bigger number has to be positive. That means the 2 is negative. So x plus 7 and x minus 2. I break it up into 2 equations. X is negative 7, and x is positive 2. All right, that's number 8. I think we have 2 more. And these are the ones where we're just looking at the graph and just giving a number. No solving involved. So a tennis ball is dropped from a certain height. The graph below shows its height h in centimeters after t seconds. How long is the ball in the air? So the ball is hitting the ground right here, right? So hitting the ground. So we're just looking at the time it was in the air. So we're looking at the time, which is the x value. So that's going to be, let's write it right here, 0.5 seconds. That's it. Number 10, Boubacar launches a toy rocket from a platform. The graph below shows the height of the rocket, h in feet after 2 seconds. How many seconds have gone by when the rocket is at its highest point? So the highest point would be right here. And how many seconds have gone by? So we're looking at time again. So we're looking at the x value again. And that's going to be 1 second. All right, scholars, let me know if you have any questions. Actually, if you're watching this, I'm probably not there. But just go ahead and try your best on the test. You're going to do fine. You can use this practice test. You can use any notes. You won't need to use Desmos or anything like that. Maybe a calculator, but that's about it. So go ahead and try the test. Good luck.